Hey guys, and welcome to my very first 12 days of makeup. If you're new to my channel or you were not with us last year, my style of vlogmas is the 12 days of makeup. So every other day from December 1st to December 23rd, on the odd days, I am going to have a video for you. But here's the kicker. Because it's the 12 days of makeup, they are all going to have to do with the number 12. So this is the very first video that's going to go up. I am super excited to film it, and I'm super excited for this series to kick off. Definitely make sure you're subscribed, follow along with us. But today, I thought it would be fun to take a look back down memory lane and revisit some of our old, like, if you've been watching YouTube for a while, I'm talking like 3, 4, 5 years old makeup favorites, products that were raved about on YouTube that everybody was going out and trying, and we're gonna see where they are now. And if you are new here, hello and welcome. My name is Kelly and I love all things makeup and beauty. I love talking, I love makeup, I love talking about makeup. So if you like to chat about makeup too, I would love to have you subscribe and be part of the K-Bella fam. But without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, so two things. My hair is nothing special today. I just tucked it behind my ears so that I would hopefully quit messing with it. And you can't tell, but I have a Christmas shirt on. Let it snow, but somewhere else. If you don't know, I live in Texas, but I am from Michigan, born and raised, so it can snow, just not here. Now, these 12 forgotten favorites are in no particular order. I'm going to scoot over because I only have one of them. So I will pop pictures up of the rest. So no order, but number one, raise your hand if you ever purchased the MAC Studio Fix Concealer. Okay, so I did not grow up in my high school years purchasing MAC makeup because my money just wasn't like that. Like, I was all about drugstore makeup. But when I became an adult in my early 20s and began watching YouTube videos, so many people talked about MAC. Remember, that was back when, I could have put this in here, but I didn't. Remember when everybody was filming their MAC lipstick collection video? Like, that was huge. And then people were talking about the MAC Studio Fix Concealer. And I remember going to a MAC store, getting that concealer. I think I was in like NC 15 or something. And I went through like maybe 2 or 3 of those. That was the only concealer I would use. And I think back to that. And I haven't tried it in several years. But first of all, I was in my 20s when I was wearing it. And like, what was I concealing? But thinking back to the texture, it was so thick and cakey. Like, if I got it now, I don't even think I would like it. Like, I really don't. And then it's something where, I mean, honestly, I feel like now people don't talk about certain MAC products. Like, MAC used to be huge, and I feel like now it's almost thought about as, I mean, there's stuff here and there where people talk about MAC, but I feel like overall it's not as hyped up as it was. People almost think about it as like a starter brand, when for me, that was not my starter brand. Okay, that was not my starter brand. But I remember that concealer. I do. If any of you still use it, let me know. Okay, so this next product, I don't hear people like recommending it and talking about it in favorites anymore, but I see it in like project pans and collection videos. And every time I see it mentioned, it's mentioned as Remember When. Remember when Milani Luminoso used to be huge? Remember when everybody was going out and getting Milani Luminoso, and the people that still have Milani Luminoso are now putting it in project pans because the thing was huge. It had that big old dome on the top and everybody's trying to use it up. I never purchased Milani Luminoso. I feel like a few years ago I heard that it got reformulated or something. I never picked it up because it was more of like an orange shade, and orange, like those just, orange and I don't mix. It makes my red hair look even more orange, and I'm not a fan of it, so I never tried Milani Luminoso. But it's one of those where I think it has like, it gives people fond memories in the YouTube space. Number 3, again, this isn't a product that you like never hear about anymore, but you don't hear about it as much. and it's the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer. This is another like OG YouTube holy grail, like everybody's favorite that I never tried. And I don't know why I never tried it. Okay, well, I take that back. So like even in the early days and the early years of my filming on YouTube, I used to only have like one bronzer in my collection. So for a really long time, it was well, I don't want to say it. It was a product that I'm going to talk about in a minute. I almost gave it away. And then for a while, it was like a Makeup Geek one. And I had like the Benefit Hoola bronzer. So I feel like I never went out and purchased the Physicians Formula because I was only having one bronzer in my collection at a time. And now my collection has expanded and I have several bronzers, but you just don't hear the Physicians Formula getting the hype like it used to. So let me know. I've heard good things about it. Let me know if you are a butter bronzer fan. Okay, I didn't want to put the Urban Decay Naked palettes in here because I feel like everybody talks about those as like OG favorites. Like everybody talked about the Nakeds. So I wanted to think about other palettes that people talked about. And what came to mind almost instantly were the Lorac Pro Palettes. Those were huge around the same time as the Naked palettes. So you had the Urban Decay Nakeds and then you had the Lorac Pro Palettes. You had the Pro 1 with the black packaging, you had the Pro 2 with the gray packaging, and then I feel like you had like a Lorac Unzipped, and then you had the huge Lorac palettes, and those were so popular. Now I owned the Lorac Pro 1 and 2. The one I didn't love as much. I may have panned a shade in there, but I liked the 2 better. I know there was like a cooler toned pink shade in there, maybe called Nectar. There were like and then like a shimmery shade. There were like 2 shades that I panned in the Lorac Pro 2. Now this was when I had a much smaller collection, but I would reach for them all the time. I thought the quality was good. You did get a ton of kickback. They were pretty powdery, and I feel like the more powdery a shadow, the easier it is to pan. Like the ABH palettes are pretty easy to pan too because they are super powdery. But I mean, I feel like it worked well, but thinking about the Lorac Pro palettes now, just the way that we have like indie makeup and the palettes that are coming out, I don't know that they would get as much hype as they did back then. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. I have since decluttered them out of my collection, but I would love to know if you still have them. Let's go back to MAC, shall we? Now this was the Jaclyn Hill days when everyone was obsessed with Jaclyn Hill, and she would talk about MAC Warm Soul. I feel like Desi Perkins talked about MAC Warm Soul. I'm sure Katie from Lustrelux probably talked about it too. And it was more of a tan neutral blush. I think it was a blush. It was like a mineralized blush. Again, came with like a dome on the top. And this was a blush that like I always wanted. It was on my wish list, but again, in the beginning days of my YouTube career, I was not purchasing a ton of pricey items, and MAC in my eyes was always a bit of a pricier brand, so I never went around to purchase it, and I feel like I heard that it got discontinued. I haven't looked it up. Now I will link all of these products down below in case you want to check them out. Sorry, my face is itching. It's probably not a good sign. So I am wearing Project Pan items, but the fact that I'm getting bumps on my face and my face is itching tells me that maybe, good thing it's December because maybe those things need to be on their way out. Anyway, I never purchased MAC Warm Soul. I'm not sure if it's still available. If it is, this is one of those products where I honestly feel like I might be interested in trying it just to see what the hype was about. Okay, so remember when I was talking about how I never purchased the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer because of another bronzer that I was using? Too Faced Chocolate Soleil. I used the Milk Chocolate Soleil, but I feel like so many people on YouTube were talking about the Too Faced Chocolate Soleil bronzers. And I don't know if they had a deeper shade, but I know for sure they had the Milk Chocolate because that was my shade. That was like one of my very first high-end bronzers, a bronzer that I panned, used completely, like had in my collection for the longest time. It smelled so good. It had that like chocolatey scent, which if you're sensitive to scents, you may not be a fan. I really enjoyed it, but that is one where I don't see anybody using it anymore. like ever. Like I don't see people in Get Ready With Me's pulling out their Too Faced Chocolate Soleil or talking about it in recommendations videos or Best of Beauty anymore, but it was definitely one that got a ton of hype back in the day. Okay, we're on number 7, and I know I don't have these in any order, but just the way that they are written in my notebook, number 7 is the only one that I still have, and it is the Buxom White Russian Lip Gloss. Now, I don't know if you can tell how much I've used. I've used a little bit below this line, and I really like this. I'm not a huge lip gloss person. This is not the original one that I purchased years ago. I actually used a ton of that one, but then it got old and I repurchased it. This is like what was one of the only lip glosses that I had in my collection. It's a nice pinky shade. I'm trying to see if it still smells good. It does, but I've had it for a while now. It was like a nice, just like a pinky shade, and I would kind of top it over everything. I never wore it on its own, although it had nice pigmentation. You do get a little bit of a cooling sensation. Not stinging, not burning, but a bit of a cooling sensation. So if you're not a fan of that, you may not like this formula, but I really liked it. And being a liquid lipstick lover, when I want to touch up my liquid lipstick, I typically go in with a lip gloss, because if you try to apply another layer of liquid lipstick, it can look really bad. So this would be the lip gloss that I would reach for. And I mean, I'm going to keep it in my collection for now, but this is the only OG favorite that I still have. Now I looked for this one, number 8, I looked for this one, and I did not see it anymore. This actually was a single eyeshadow, but it was in some palettes. The shade African Violet by Laura Mercier. So Laura Mercier came out with an artist palette. I had that palette. It was supposed to be limited edition. They ended up making it permanent, but the African Violet shade was in there, and I'm pretty sure I nearly panned it. Now I did end up getting rid of that palette because around that time, after having it for a year or so, I started struggling with eczema on my eyes, and I was afraid that palette was the one doing it. But African Violet was this beautiful, like I couldn't find it on the Sephora website, but I almost want it in my collection again. It was a beautiful, like light purple. It was before duochromes, but it had like golds in there. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Do you remember this? I remember hearing people talk about this shade and wanting it, but I wasn't one to like really purchase a ton of singles other than Makeup Geek. So when I saw it in a palette, I was super excited and I snagged it, but in looking for it, I don't know that that's one that you can get anymore. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I couldn't find it on the Sephora website. We've talked about some pricey items, but there were some affordable items that were floating around the beauty space, and those Wet n Wild trios were one of them, specifically Walking on Eggshells. But there were so many YouTubers talking about the Wet n Wild trios, talking about the mega palettes that Wet n Wild had, and like really hyping them up and raving about them. And I remember having several. I definitely think if you were on a budget, like those were the way to go. And I feel like their quality was good. I don't hear people talking about them anymore. Like literally everybody used to talk about them. And now it's like they're still there, they're still around, but nobody's talking about them. So if you had the Wet n Wild shadows, let me know if you still have them and which ones you had. We'll stick with drugstore, the Maybelline Baby Skin Primer. Pretty sure this is still available, but there were I vividly remember Katie from Lustrelux talking about this primer and saying that it was like the best thing ever. I went out and purchased it, and I remember it felt like straight silicone on my skin. And having dry skin, I did not like that feeling. It almost felt like it was sucking the moisture out of me. But I remember people raving about this primer to the point where they would like cut the top off to be able to scoop out the rest of the product. And I don't hear people talking about it anymore. I think this is another product where I was watching a Project Pan and someone mentioned this primer, and that's when I was like, oh yeah, like same with Milani Luminoso. Like people had these products and now they're trying to pan them because we're on to bigger and better, I guess. My battery's blinking at me and I have 2 more products to share with you. So number 11 are the Stila glitters. These Stila glitters, specifically the shade Kitten. Remember when Kitten was big from Stila? But these Stila glitters, like everybody was getting them. I had a couple and I don't even like glitter. But if I was going to wear glitter, that's how I would do it, because you had the doe foot applicator and you could just like pop it on your eye, blend it out with your finger, good to go, like one and done shade. And I actually feel like they were good quality. Like I feel like it was a good product. You got a nice glitter on your eye. You didn't get a ton of fallout and it was easy to use, but I feel like nobody really talks about Stila in general at all these days. So there's that. But if you have any of these Stila glitters and you had them when they were popular, it's probably time to throw them out. For the last product, I actually saw this one scrolling through Instagram and I wanted to put another eyeshadow palette in there, but again, I wanted to stay away from the Nakeds because they are so popular. But do you remember when everybody went bananas for the Too Faced Sweet Peach palette? Like I remember it came out and then it either sold out or it was supposed to be limited edition and then it came back. But people were going crazy. Like people were going crazy. They were lining up at Ulta's. I honestly feel like I remember Samantha March talking about how she wanted this palette and she like went to Ulta early to go get it. And now in looking back at pictures of the palette, because this is one that I never owned, in looking back at pictures of the palette, I'm like, was it really that great though? Was it really? People loved it. People raved about it. It sold out. But was it really that great compared to the eyeshadows we have now? I don't know. You tell me because I didn't have it. But with that, we are going to wrap up this video. My 12 forgotten favorites, old YouTube OGs that we used to talk about. I just thought it would be fun to kind of kick off this series, kick off my vlogmas, my 12 days of makeup, by looking back at the past. So I would love to know if you tried any of these products or you still have them. Let me know down below. I also would love to know if there is a forgotten favorite that I didn't mention about, but you're like, Kelly, people were raving about this on YouTube. Let me know in the comments down below because I very well may have forgotten about it. But I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this video up because like I said, my battery is blinking at me, but definitely give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you're subscribed. I will be back every other day, so not tomorrow, but the day after with a new 12 days of makeup. Thank you guys so much for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye.